Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this lesson is for you to learn about exponents. You may have heard about exponents before, but it's still important to review before we move on with our work on circles. So, everything you need to know about an exponent, there are two components. There has to be a base, which is typically a number, and there has to be a very small exponent, and this number will be written small up above, and the exponent tells you how many times you are multiplying the number that's the base by itself. So label those two things, please, at the top of your notes page. And we're going to look at our first numerical example. So, in our first example, we have the number 4. That's our base. Okay, it's the large number written like a normal number. We also have a little exponent. The exponent in this example is just a 3. Okay, that tells us that we will take our base and we will multiply it by itself 3 times. So the exponent controls how many times you're multiplying the base by itself. It is not, okay, some students believe this. They believe they're supposed to take 4 times 3, and that's not true. If I wanted you to multiply 4 times 3, I'd do something like this, and the 3 would be the same size as the 4. Okay, so keep in mind, this is not just multiplying the two values together. The exponent is written in a manner that reminds us all that this tells us how many times we're multiplying 4. So, of course, 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. Now, most exponent problems are pretty straightforward. You could use your calculator, of course. It's not a big deal to do 4 times 4 times 4 and hit the equals button. But there is something interesting I'll show you on your calculator in just a little bit to make our calculations quicker and easier with our technology. So, next question. In your note sheet, you have the number 1. And this time you're raising it to the 5th power. So this is going to take a little bit longer to do this outright by hand if you're using a calculator and you're just typing in 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. It starts to get a little time consuming. But because you're working with ones, we do have our answer that is still 1. 1 times 1 times 1 is kind of a special case where you just get the answer of 1. Last one, I have a ton of students who do this one and they make a mistake, and it's kind of a silly mistake because your brain sees the 3 and the 2 and your brain wants to multiply 3 times 2. Well, that's not what exponents have us do. Remember, the 2 is the exponent and it tells us that, hey, we're only multiplying the base times itself 2 times, okay? So I even have students write this down and they still tell me the answer is 6, okay? Because they're still thinking 3 times 2. It's not. It's 3 times 3. 3 groups of 3 is 9, okay? So be careful with that one. Again, it's just where I see students commonly make a mistake. All right, now some vocabulary. When you have to square a number, okay, this would be a good example of saying 3 to the 2nd power, but I could also use this vocab word. I could say this is 3 squared. Squared just means that the exponent that you're raising the base to is just a 2. So if I was to do another example, maybe I would give you the problem 5 squared. This is what it would look like when I wrote it down. 5 squared means 5 to the 2nd power. It means I take the number 5 times itself. Okay, see how we just have the 2 matching factors? And the solution is 25. Okay, so that's another example of squaring something. And then there's another word called cubed. Okay, cubed is an example like we did up here. This is 4 raised to the 3rd power, but we could also say 4 cubed because anytime you use the word cubed, it means that your number was raised to the power of 3. So why don't we do a base of 2 cubed, meaning 2 to the 3rd power. To practice, this means I have a 2 times another 2 times a 3rd 2. Remember, this tells you how many times to multiply the base. So just be careful. 2 times 2 is 4. The answer we got from the first set of multiplying 4 times 2 gives us 8. All right. Now, having this side of your note sheet finished, we're now going to move and we're just going to play around with the calculator for just a little bit. We talked to you about this example already. 5 squared does equal 25. but I want you to practice with your calculator. Okay, there's a special button right down here, and on the face of the button it has the letter X and it has a little 2 above it. And this is the special button that you will press whenever you need to square a number. So in this case we have 5 squared. Remember, we could just type in 5 times 5 to get our answer, but if you ever want to make it go a little quicker, you would type in 5 and then hit this X squared button, and this should show up on your screen. After this shows up on your screen, you go ahead and hit equals, and it should automatically give your answer of 25. So basically this little button here is kind of a shortcut. Whenever you have to square a number, it allows you to do so quickly, and you don't have to think about anything other than just squaring the number, typing it in. Alright, I've got the answer, and then I thought we would try this one too. There is another feature on our calculator, and it's right down here, and it shows up as this little, like, caret, I guess you would call it. Okay? When you want to use an exponent that isn't a 2, right? We're not squaring 16. We're supposed to raise 16 to the 4th power. I could do it out by hand by typing in 16 times 16 times 16 times 16, but it's going to take me a while. So, here's a shortcut. Okay? If you type in your base, and then you go hit this button here, which I call the caret, it will allow you to type in the exponent behind it. So you can see it shows up just like this on your screen. And then what you are going to do is you're going to hit your equals button. And the nice thing about this is it's going to take your answer, or your value, 16, and it's going to do all the work for us, okay? And I believe for this one you get 65,536. So again, there's the caret button that I wanted you to learn about. Again, it looks just like this, and it's right over here next to the X squared button that we said you can use whenever you're going to raise a number to the 2nd power. Alright, so now what you have is a whole page to practice not only squaring, we just talked about the X squared button. Okay, remember you could use the X squared button on examples like this, okay? But when you get down here, you're going to have to use your caret button because none of the exponents are going to be just a 2. Well, I guess there's one right here. But basically this button will work if you're squaring, if you're cubing, even if you're raising it to the 8th power. So what I would like you to do, I would like you to take your calculator, I would like you to pause this video, and I would like you to go through each of these examples practicing using the buttons on the calculator that we just talked about. When you're done answering all these questions, you can go ahead and hit play, and then what you'll do is you'll check your answers before you tape this in your notebook. So again, pause the video, and then make sure you come back and check your work. Okay, so while practicing with your new buttons that allow us to do exponents, remember for this one, you would type in 17, and then you would hit your X squared button. Should give you 289. 22 squared, 484, 13 squared, 169, and 16 squared, 256. Remember, you could have used your caret button because anytime you put in the base and then the caret button, just like at this example, 9 caret 2, it'll do the same thing as hitting the X squared button does, okay? But you definitely need the caret button for these ones down here. These ones rarely have you just square the number. This one says 11 cubed, remember, to the 3rd power is cubed. So check your answers in this area. See how you did. I know some of the values got pretty large. And then down here I want to talk just a little bit about your vocabulary. Again, 6 cubed means 6 to the 3rd power, so you should get 216. 24 squared just meant 24 to the 2nd power. And then these ones, again, you just have to read carefully. 5 is your base, and you're being raised to the power of 4. So 5 to the 4th power is what you're calculating. And then 2 to the 7th. The last two, as always, were a little tricky because I'm asking you to figure out what exponent would be needed on the base of 5 so that you would multiply all your 5's together, and this would be your answer, 325. So I kind of did some work over here. I said, okay, 5 to the 1st power is 5. 5 squared is 25. 5 cubed is 125, so you can see your answers are getting bigger. 5 to the 4th power is not quite where I want to be, but finally 5 to the 5th power gave me that 3,125. So that's how I knew the exponent had to be a 5. And then this kind of asks a slightly different question. What number, so I put a box where my base would sit, what number raised to the 3rd power would give you the answer of 64. So I just kind of did some guessing checking again. I said, okay, what if it was a 1? 1 to the third power is still 1. 2 to the third power is only 8. 3 to the third power is 27. And finally, I found it 4 to the third power is 64. So I guess I should probably officially write down my answer. The number that I raised to the third power to get 64 is 4. 4 would fit right here in the problem. So as always, you're going to take your scissors, you're going to go ahead and cut, you're going to put your pages down. We're looking at page 91 and 92 today for your exponents.